If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniac. It's kind of a running joke in my office that I always get the weirdest calls, and it's true. One of the more interesting ones I got was from a drunk guy who meant to call the cops and was trying to file a noise complaint about his own party. Well, some of my calls can be pretty strange. They're usually fairly tame. I've been pretty lucky because I haven't had too many disturbing calls or sad stories from my years of working as a 911 operator. If you're looking for something like that, I can point you to several of my colleagues because unfortunately, there's no shortage of these in this industry. The call that particularly sticks out in my mind is one I had about a year or two ago. I can honestly say it's one of the most frightening experiences of my entire life, and think it's going to stick with me forever. It had actually been a fairly slow afternoon that day. I know it sounds kind of insensitive, but if you're not taking a call, the job can get pretty boring. I got stuck covering my friend's evening shift and didn't expect things to be more interesting. I was counting down the minutes until my shift ended when a call came through my line. I put the headset on and ran through the usual script. 911, what's your emergency? I think there's someone in my home. The voice sounded as though it belonged to a young child. My heart sank immediately. Calls from children are the worst. We're trained to get as much information from each caller as possible. This makes it easy to more fully understand the situation, as well as figure out which emergency service is needed. What's your name, sweetheart? I kept my voice upbeat and calm. There was no need in screaming, because I just make them more scared. Elizabeth, she said softly. I think she's crying. That's a beautiful name. Mine's Amelia. Even though I didn't show it, I'm nervous now. This is very important. Can you tell me what's happening right now? The line was quiet for a moment before Elizabeth began speaking. I think someone's in my home. Where are your parents? I ask. They're not home. I don't know where they are. I was pretty angry when I heard this. What kind of parents leave a little girl home alone late at night? Is there anyone else there with you? I say. Yeah, I think they're looking for me. Elizabeth began before her voice abruptly stopped at the very end of the sentence. Had it not been for her quiet, frightened breaths, I would have thought she or whoever else was there hung up. They said my name, she says. Where are you now? I heard a door click. In my parents' closet. She spoke a little louder now, probably thinking the intruder wouldn't be able to hear her from in there. I hope she's right. I was glad that she knew to hide. A lot of kids freeze off in dangerous situations like this, especially if their older siblings aren't there. I asked her for her address, which she gave to me, but for the sake of privacy, I was only gonna say Elizabeth's house was in a fairly nice neighborhood in my area, and it's not far from the police station, which is very helpful. Elizabeth, just focus on my voice now, I said. I need you to try and relax. I'm sending the police to your house right now. They should be there in about 5 minutes. Can you hold on until then? Even though I would usually try to get a little more information about the intruder, I always tend to err on the side of caution when speaking to children. I'd much rather send someone and have it be a false alarm than a safety risk. Elizabeth did not answer my question. It took her longer than I was comfortable with to respond. When she did, it was only with one word. Listen. I heard the phone crackle as she brought it away from her ear, holding it out. At first, I didn't hear anything, But as I focused on the background noise, I noticed a lot of whispering. I really couldn't tell what they were saying, but it definitely sounded like it was coming from more than one person. I hope the police would get there on time, as much as I hope people with my job and as many lives as I saved. It is always so frustrating I can't do anything but talk. Elizabeth's voice came out in hushed sobs. "He's coming up here, please. The police are almost there. I need you to be quiet so he doesn't hear you. You're gonna be okay, I promise." She calms down now. Everything was quiet for a moment, save for the whispering, which was much louder now. I didn't know what they were saying, but I was sure it was coming from multiple people. I could pick out at least 3 distinctive voices. When I heard a door crackle open through my phone, my heart leaps. Elizabeth screams, and I knew the intruders had found her. I was so devastatingly scared. "Are you okay? I need to know what's happening." I was trying and failing to stop my voice from cracking. "There's a man. He has really long legs and a really big smile." I heard another bang coming from somewhere in the house and people yelling "police," thank God. I could hear Elizabeth crying as she whispers and the situation intensifies. I still don't know how she only saw one person. There had to have been more than 4. "He isn't touching the floor." The line cuts off. I frantically try to re-establish a connection, but no matter how many times I try, I'm only met with static. Now I haven't heard anything since. Elizabeth or her family haven't been seen either since this happened. The police only find the phone.
"10 out of 10. Best horror in the Pacific Northwest. Horror at NW Magazine. Not for the faint of heart. Sealess Woods is the pinnacle of horror. Connor McIntosh, creator of Zomglass. Something about it felt so real. H&S Insider." Melanie read the reviews for the newest scare park that was taking the county by storm, as if trying to convince me to go. I don't know why she felt she needed to do so. I'd gone to every single frightening thing she'd ever talked about. I loved the thrill almost as much as she did. "Mel," I stopped her from reading the next part mid-sentence. "Let's do it, next weekend." I turned around to face her, after sliding on my favourite silver necklace. "Damn, you look so sexy." Mel shut up and looked at me twice. I had a date tonight, and although I certainly didn't feel sexy, I seized the opportunity to put on a dress I'd purchased a year ago and never had the chance to wear. A tight-fitting pale yellow with floral stitching down the side. Matched with heels and hoop earrings. I'll take that back. I do feel sexy. I'm gonna slay this date. Message received, 9:03. "Hey, Han. I'm really sorry, but something urgent came up. I'm not gonna be able to make it tonight. Rain check for tomorrow." The look on my face must have been pretty obvious, because when I look up from my phone, Mel looked even more furious than I was disappointed. No. He's not banging on you again," she started, her voice raising with every no. "I didn't even say—" "You don't have to, Hannah. I've been your best friend for our whole life. Listen, we're gonna go." Her eyes lit up as she came up with an idea. I hate that look. It always ends in a situation I'd rather not be in. Mel began excitedly pointing at her phone, turning it around for me to see. "We have 2 minutes. Swap in some flats. We're making it into Sealess tonight." The feeling of rejection and submitting to sitting in my room another night alone was immediately replaced with a childlike excitement. I quickly did as my best friend suggested and swapped my heels for a pair of black running shoes, which I decided were a better choice than flats. I wanted to change in some more casual clothes as well, but we had to run right away if we wanted to catch the bus in time without waiting for another 30 minutes. We managed to catch it right on time, and 20 minutes later we were arriving at the park's entrance. It was a sight to behold. Held just outside of Portland's city limits, Sealess Woods was crafted out of an environment itself. There were hardly any signs and lights that would normally be seen around the start of the theme park, but rather everything was dimly lit, and low orchestra type music was being played through the hidden speakers all throughout the trees leading to the main gate. A stark contrast to the nerdy looking boy who was at the ticket booth. which had been nothing more than a hole cut into a rather large tree. He smiled and gave us our tickets, and went back into playing what looked like Fruit Ninja on his company iPad. Okay, I say fuck saving best for last. Let's do the haunted walk first, yeah? Mel spoke excitedly. I nodded, and we made our way through the trails to the entrance, where there was a ridiculously long line. I mean like 2 hours wait long. Well, good thing we went here first. By the time we get in, the park will be closed. I rumbled, annoyed. Why did parks like these never seem to have lines that were manageable? Mel agreed, but seemed content just to sit around and wait, so we did. We ran through just about every conversation topic we could think of, ranging from how much an arse Dan was being for cancelling on me tonight, to Mel's nervous excitement about being the lead of the school's play that was set to start practice in 2 weeks. As we got closer, we started gauging the looks on people who were leaving the park's faces to see if everything in those walls really lived up to the hype. Some looked scared out of their minds, some were nervously laughing, some showed no expression at all. Overall though, it seemed like more people were genuinely afraid. That was good. One thing that I was beginning to notice, however, was that there seemed to be less people coming out than going in. At first I struck it up to people getting lost in the maze, or me just not paying attention to people coming out, but as we get closer, it began to be more noticeable. Hey, does it seem to you like less people are going out than coming in? I asked Mel. She shot me a sly glance and a smile. Don't try and scare me, Han. It's not going to work. No, I'm serious. I think... I was cut off by the attendant asking for our tickets and quickly ushering us inside. Well, I guess it's too late to go back now. I admit, I felt more anxious than I normally do, but maybe that's why this particular park is rated so high. Good on them. As soon as you walk inside the area designated for the attraction, you're confronted with the option to go right, which leads to a building that's flashing with all sorts of lights and colours, or going left into what looks like a confined style maze. I motion left and Melanie starts on that way. We work our way around, the sound of distant screaming, loud bangs of hands on loose metal, and of course the revving of chainsaws fills the air. My nerves are on end as we creep through the hedges of the stalk of corn. I can feel one of them stalking us, trying to keep quiet until the perfect moment to jump out and get us. The problem is, I don't know where he's watching from. It could literally be any direction. Finally, as we're about to leave the open field into what looks like a burned down barn, with similar flashing lights to the original building if we'd turned right, he gets us. Well, he gets Mel. I was about 2 feet behind her in a narrow hallway that only allowed for one of us to go at a time. When he springs through the bushes, emerging between 2 of us and grabbing her shoulder before screaming in her face, she turns around. Hey, you're not allowed to touch me, Mel screams as she frantically backs away, after which the actor sprints off into the hedges, giggling maniacally the whole way. Oh, I hate it when they do that. I can't help but laugh. I know deep down she was loving it, but she doesn't act like it when she's actually got. I smile at her and beckon for her to walk through the door in front of us. No, allow that. You lead this time. Mel puts her head down, muttering under her breath about how she's going to tell the man's boss that he touched her and on and on. I roll my eyes and push forward, feeling a little better than I had before. The inside of the barn was made to feel very cramped and claustrophobic. Every hallway required you to squeeze by a rag doll, or a stuffed pig carcass, or something equally as disgusting. Mirrors lined the walls, showing rooms where unlucky patients were getting tortured or beaten. It felt extremely real, terrifyingly real. The sense of security I felt after Melanie had gotten jumped on and myself had vanished almost instantly. As we walked, the sound of metal scraping metal followed us. I grabbed Melanie's hand as we navigated the corridors, and screeched along with her as a man's painting came alive and screamed at us. The rooms where visitors were getting tortured were getting worse. The screams became more bloody the further we went. I rounded the corner and immediately fell back onto my back as a man with a chainsaw stood waiting for me, turning it on and laughing at me with dramatic effect. I let go of Melanie's hand just for a moment to brace my fall, and when I turned back to find her, she was gone. "Melanie!" I yelled, panic welling up in my throat. "Mel, this isn't funny!" I don't know where she could have been hiding, or why she felt now was the best time to prank me, but she was going to get a firm scolding from me as soon as I could breathe on my own again. "Hannah, help me!" I heard a cry for help, and in an instant I knew something was wrong. Melanie didn't scare easily, so the fact that they got one over her earlier would normally have put me on shutdown mode, but this was her screaming for her life. I turned to the man with a chainsaw, but he was gone. Raising to my feet, I sprinted in the direction of Melanie's voice. Somehow she had gotten ahead of me. I pushed past the junk hanging from the ceiling and completely ignored the rooms to the side, solely focused on finding my friend. "Hannah!" she screamed again, but this time it was from behind me. How? There was only one path. I turned back around, and at this point I began to wonder where the next people in the line were. Shouldn't they be following behind us soon? Maybe they could help. A sickening thud shook my head to the left as a body slammed up against a glass to one of the torture rooms. My heart dropped. Inside I saw Mel, and she was being dragged backwards and tied down onto a table in the middle of the room. Her screams no longer audible as a rag was shoved into her mouth. Her eyes panicked, looking directly at me the whole time. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. It didn't matter. Moments after she was tied down, the person in the room looked at me and smiled a bloody smile before jamming a twisted blade into her gut. I screamed, and I hate to admit it, but I ran. I wish I could say that I knew that there was no hope for her, and I left knowing there was nothing I could do, but I was only saving myself. I was too terrified to do anything else. I managed to slip into a side room I found. It's definitely one of the torture rooms, but there's no one in here and all the lights are out. I called the police about an hour ago, and they should have shown up by now, but I can still hear the screams out there. When I called the operator back, they could only tell me that 2 squads had been sent out, and that they would stay on the line with me until they got there. I was nervous that my voice would call someone to find me though, so I hung up. I'm typing this out, huddled in the corner of the room that could very well be my grave. If anyone's near, please help me. I don't know how long I'll make it here, and I think I hear the footsteps.
Last night at around 2:30 AM, I was awoken by a phone call. I assumed it was spam, maybe an ex-girlfriend calling me to say something dumb, and instinctively reached over to decline the call. My tired brain didn't even bother seeing who it was as I hung up and go back to sleep. I got another call around 5 minutes later. I groaned and reached to decline it again, but this time I saw who was calling me. 911. Why was 911 calling me? I checked the time. It's 2:35. A call from the police at 2:35? I'm confused and answered the call. Hello? I don't hear anything at first. Hello, I say again. Hi, a raspy voice slowly replies. This would have been the part where I would have thrown my phone across the bed, but for whatever reason, I decided to keep on talking. Who is this? I said, forgetting for a second it's obvious. Didn't the number appear when I called? It's the police, you idiot. I remember trying to decline the call around this point, but the button didn't work. What the hell? I muttered to myself, hearing the person on the other end laugh to himself. Idiot, you're an idiot, the voice quietly said, irritated. I asked, you don't sound like an operator. Oh, I'm an operator, alright, the voice hissed, but not one that's willing to kiss you anymore. This was confusing. What are you talking about? I said, trying to hang up again, but it won't even let me cut the power to my phone. I was being forced to listen to some cranky guy spit a bunch of nonsense. The voice seemed to ignore my previous question and kept on talking. I'm an operator. I can do anything an operator can do, and more. The voice chuckled to himself again before he kept going. I'm sorry for messing up your good night's sleep, but you need to know about something. What the hell? I realized whoever I was talking to was part of the police and stopped myself for a second. What should I know about? Now there's another pause before the operator starts talking again. Before I ask anything, do you remember everyone who called you today? Well, besides you, no one today. Why'd you ask? The operator breathed in what sounds like a sigh of relief, but his voice made it very hard to tell exactly what it was. Good. That means our plan's still working. You're not the only one who picked up so far. Plus, the simple fact that you picked up pretty much forces you to go with what we've planned. I said, what do you mean? Before I'm interrupted by multiple notifications. I have 4 or so text messages, all different numbers. I opened up one of them. It was a house. The image looked as though it was taken in the middle of the night. The sky dark. None of the windows have light. Doesn't look like any house from my neighborhood. Not even any houses I recognize from nearby. I open up another 3 texts. They all show similar images. An image of someone's house taken in the middle. What's this? I ask. I already said. You aren't the first one who received a call like this. These are all from the last 4 months. You, sir, are looking at dead people's homes. What? You're looking at dead people's houses. All of these people lost the game, so we killed them. You're not serious, are you? The operator laughed again. I hate his laugh. His scratchy, mocking laugh so much. You idiot, of course we're serious. You want to see the bodies? No, I don't. Coward. Fine. You don't doubt that I'm a 911 operator, right? What kind of operator talks about killing people in some game? You're not an operator. You're a maniac. I found myself shouting suddenly. What the hell do you want from me? Why did you call? Ah, fine. I confess. I may or may not be a 911 operator. There. Happy now? Please leave me alone. Hang up the phone, don't call back. I will call the police on you, even if you're an operator. The operator begins clacking. He kept on clacking for way too long. Oh, you idiot, you blind idiot. What police? That's when he hung up on me. I started to fall asleep again. I then got another text message from one of the phone numbers that was basically a recording of the whole conversation. The message claimed that he said something that gave it away, but after listening to it a few times, I still don't know what he's talking about.
Sometimes at family reunions, we'll get my uncle to tell us some of his old stories. He normally tells us about robberies and stuff like that, but yesterday he told us a different story. He told us about a missing person call, which was another type of story he would tell us a lot about, but this one was very different. From what he told us, it was about someone's husband who had gone out to work in that morning and never came back. He apparently worked as a park ranger at a nearby park, and he normally just worked in the office. Apparently he left at 6 in the morning, which was already earlier than he normally left in the morning, and then called around 10 to say he was going to be working late, and never came home. They sent out a lot of people to look for him in the area, but they didn't find him near the offices at all. A couple of hours after the initial call, he received another call about the same topic, but from a different person. This time the call was from another park ranger. He was panicking and couldn't get many words out before crying. In the time before the call cut off, the guy made out 2 general ideas. He said that he found the guy who went missing earlier that day, and that the guy was out of his mind. The search continued on for a week, and neither the man nor the second caller were found. After all that effort was put in, they called the search off. But for some reason, my uncle just knew the man was still out there. It didn't take long for another call to come in about him either. This time coming from a younger woman, probably around 20 years old. She was terrified and talking about how she found a corpse of a dead park ranger. My uncle immediately knew what she was talking about and sent a squad out to investigate it. They found the girl and she told him that she found it roughly 30 minutes before they arrived. They took his cell phone from his pocket And sure enough, the last phone call on it was from 2 weeks before, and it was to 911. Because of the amount of time between the call and him being found, there was no real way to track down the killer, but the kill was gruesome. The man's legs had been violently ripped off, and his eyes were, well, gone. He also had 3 rather large, deep slash wounds in his chest. The police reopened the search for the initial missing person, and within 3 days of doing so, found his corpse in a cave. The cave had writing all over the walls, but it all said the same thing. It all said, "He's coming for me." The man's corpse had the same injuries the first victim had, and the police reported that it was most likely caused by the same entity. The police also reported that the entire time they were in the cave, they felt like they were being watched. Over the next month, every police officer that entered the cave was killed, and every officer bared the same wound as the 2 park rangers. The only person left who had been part of the case after a 6-month period was my uncle. This was the last story my uncle ever told at a family gathering, because last night they found him sitting in his bed, both his legs were ripped off, and 3 deep gouges going into his chest.
This was the most scary call I ever had as a 911 operator, and probably not for the reason you'd think. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, it's been going on for a while now. Oh, okay, what's that? I really don't want to talk about it, but I need your help now. Sir, I need to know your problem, or we can't send the appropriate help. I really want to help you now, I just need some details of the situation, and if you're in immediate danger. They're coming for me right now, I don't know what to do. I've been on the run for weeks now. I'm in a isolated area of forests. I'm in a small abandoned cabin right now. I think they're getting closer. Okay, how many of them are there? Do you know your exact address? Look, no I don't. I need your help now. I said, sir, we'll dispatch a police car as soon as we know where you are. We're unable to trace your location. He then begins whispering to me. I struggle to hear what he says at first, but then when I hear it, I am terrified. He begins describing my exact appearance and what I'm wearing on the day of the call. He then reads out my exact address and when I'll be home. He begins laughing and ends the call.
Just some info. I'm 23, male, single, and living in my first home. I'm currently sitting in my bedroom with the door locked for a reason. The lights go out every night. Every single night around 11:30 to 11:45, the lights in my entire house go out, and I hear noises throughout my house. It started about 2 weeks ago. I was going through Our Funny when I saw the lights turned off outside my door from the tiny sliver under it. I immediately bolted up and locked my door, terrified that a burglar was in my house. I waited for a few minutes because maybe it's just a bulb blowing, but then I heard sounds. Slight scratching, tiny scratches outside my door, followed by what I thought sounded like whispering. I'm a paranoid person, so as paranoid people do, I called 911 and told them there's someone nearby in my house. Shortly after I told them what happened, the lights came back on and the sound stopped. Do I go outside? What if they're still there? I have no idea what to do. I decided to keep my door locked and go to sleep. The next morning, everything seemed normal. No signs of forced entry into my house. I couldn't even find any scratch marks, and I began to think it was all in my head. I went to work and had a normal day. I came home, poured myself a glass of wine, and went into my bedroom to browse Reddit. 11:35. Crack. Lights out. Something is without a doubt wrong. This is the second time. I know there's someone in my home. Again I call the police. They come and find nothing. I told them I didn't feel safe, and they told me to stop calling unless it's something seriously wrong. I can't turn to the police. I need to take matters into my own hands. I set up surveillance camera systems around my house. It plays live through my phone and my laptop 24/7. I'm gonna catch this thing. Next night, 11:40, I'm watching the feed. Lights out, right on schedule. My door's locked. I'm ready to see who's breaking into my home. What I see next is why I'm no longer staying at my home and staying at a friend's house. On camera 3, right in front of my bedroom door, I saw her. I saw a girl. She's standing in front of my door. I yell out, "What do you want?" No response. "Get out my house!" Nothing. What is this? Is this a game? Am I gonna die? Then I realise there's a girl on every camera feed. They're all staring at me. They know I'm watching. They just know. Just for an update, after a long night of staring at the girls, who were maybe age 12, who all wore raggedy clothes and had black hair, they stare at the camera every night. I've given the footage to the police, and they told me this is the weirdest thing they ever saw. I'm staying with a friend now, but here's where it gets really bad. I have reason to believe that the girls are coming from One Hope Orphanage for Girls, an orphanage that I thought was abandoned, but I guess not. Do I go back home?